Voting is underway in Turkana Central and Fafi constituencies where voting was postponed on Thursday due to bad weather. IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati says heavy rains made it impossible to transport voting material to the respective polling stations in the two constituencies. Voting in Luo Nyanza has, however, been postponed indefinitely over insecurity. IEBC had deferred the election in Siaya, Kisumu, Migori and Homa Bay counties to today but cancelled it yesterday. The National Resistance Movement, formerly NASA, has insisted that the repeat election is irregular. Latest results of Thursday's election show President Kenyatta is in the lead with well over 7 million votes. We continue with the conversation here in studio, and just before we took that break, Mamboleo, you are winding up, and I need to wind up because of time, and I need to also have the other panelists weigh in. You said some things there that I think they want to have a rebuttal. Wind up your point.
I want to wind up like this, and I want to face Kenyans and tell them that we have a political crisis in the sense that the Republic of Kenya is divided along ethnic lines, and there is absolutely no telling how this will finally resolve itself. However, there are key things that we need to understand as a nation, that our elections are guided by the Constitution of the Republic 2010. And these elections, for as long as they continue happening under that Constitution, they are always going to produce a loser. But this is what is important for Kenya today, that elections are mobilized along ethnic lines, okay? So there is nothing in the Constitution which disallows that kind of mobilization. And so long as that continues to happen, you're going to have one side of this ethnic divide pitted against another side of the ethnic formation, so that the result is going to always be the same. So let's not mix these issues. Do we want to have a relook at this Constitution? If we do, then we need to start a conversation. And as a consultant, I know that there's something important that we need to do. We need to look very carefully and frame the issues, okay? Agree that as a nation, these are the grievances we have. This is where we want to go. This is where we are. And this is how we would want to do these things better. Then, after framing these issues, we get into a process in which we act on a process in which we get solutions, okay? And then implement those solutions. If as we go along, we realize that we require probably a change or amendment in the Constitution or the laws so as to give us that better Kenya that we are looking for, then we do that, as opposed to resorting to the kind of violence that we have seen. That will be completely outside an orderly society, which I believe strongly NASA and Raila Odinga want to create. Let's not go there, because, as I keep saying, that is an unruly horse, which if we mount Gitonga, we will never know where it will take us.
Lydia, you had some comments that you wanted to give.
Yes. I was actually on the trail to what my brother is talking about. NASA is misleading its supporters.
In what sense?
The elections are already underway. People have gone out and cast their votes. Those that did not feel that they wanted to do it were told, and they have a right not to participate in it. And they have no right to really come out and attack anyone. I mean, I have challenged NASA and the leadership of NASA to change strategy. You cannot continue doing the same thing. You cannot continue thinking that you're going to hold people hostage, because the NASA supporters are being held hostage by its leadership. And it's good for us to face this country and tell the truth. If we are not careful, we are seeing a repeat of 2007. Why? Michael, I have failed an election 3 times. 2022, I'll be going back to try and battle it out. I cannot lie to you, there is always a loser. If I had been very keen to identify the flaws along the process, my opponent who clinched the seat actually was committing in terms of electoral flaws, I would have moved to court. I would have challenged that. Let me tell you something. Kenyans, we need peace. Tumechoka, yes, and we are getting annoyed. We need this peace.
Peace cannot be
peace cannot prevail, Michael, if we are still misleading Kenyans. Kenyans believe what their leadership says.
You're not allowed to say anything.
No, it's true. We must tell Kenyans.
Let me hear from Steve.
It's okay.
And try and keep it brief, please. We're trying to manage.
Steve has gagged me.
No. The thing is this. A sober and dispassionate approach is what you're looking for, right?
Correct.
Now, the Constitution, which is our article of faith, offers us a predictable pathway without naming names or calling people, undesirable phrases or terms. You frame the issue. I talked about what is our organizing question as a country. Are we innovating within the law, or are we looking for solutions wherever they may be found, within or outside the law? You see, that comment, of course, displaces some of the arguments made by NASA without the need to attack NASA or the person of Raila Odinga. You look at what is the determinate of a predictable pathway the Constitution has given us. And I've already restated, so I don't know why we are still going back to that. The thing is this: we have an election sanctioned by law. So any debate around that is misplaced, whether it's coming from NASA or Jubilee. After this declaration of the results, the predictable pathway is the judicial forum. Now, let us not delegitimize any Kenyan, including Raila himself, who wants to go there. That's a forum ordained by the Constitution. We must recognize and respect that. When we are done with that, the president, if he's successful at the ballot and at the court, is sworn in by the law. That's a predictable pathway. It is not open to NASA or even Jubilee to chest stamp or decry the process when the Constitution has ordained an election, the Supreme Court has validated that election, someone has been sworn in for a term of 5 years. It is not open to us to begin to delegitimize that process at that level again. And what I'm saying is this: the things that we care for as a nation, we must found them on some basis. The foundation for locating the issues for that discussion, for a political discussion, must be founded in the law. And I said that in this country, why we go round in circles is because Kenyans care deeply about the presidency. And do you know why we care deeply about the presidency? Because we are excessively ethnic. So supporters of NASA are unable to overcome the prejudices because they see those things through the lenses of NASA, through NASA lenses. And they are unable to overcome, to even read through between the lines and see what is a falsification or not. And so is the case with supporters of Jubilee. That is part of our lived realities. But what we need to do in terms of harmonizing the approach, I know some of these processes, Gitonga, are adversarial, especially when it comes to court. But we need the Constitution itself. Look at Article 10. It requires a consultative, deliberative, and negotiated approach as we go to court. The grandstanding that my colleague Mambole is trying to posture here, I'm sure not deliberately, we need an approach that says if we go to court, we understand that judicial process may actually validate the election. And let us begin to make peace with that as a country. Let us not continue to attack that process even after. You get it? Yes. That consultative, deliberative approach is what requires magnanimity on the part of the winner, and also the realization that anyway, actually in a democratic process, there is always only one person at the top. But that doesn't make the second person a loser. You know, this idea, this conversation of a zero-sum game is what is heightening controversy, the tension, and makes the supporters of NASA, for instance, feel like they're completely left out. I would suggest... The winner takes it all. Because this election, finally, this election has been conducted by the Constitution. It has both legal legitimacy, but the political legitimacy, a bit of it is in doubt. Let's not discount that. How Uhuru Kenyatta corrects that is what will hold this country together. If he wants to correct that political legitimacy, and he should also care for his legacy, by saying, we know you are just promoters of evil, I think that would be a very harmful and divisive approach, and he has not said that. I hope that and privilege an approach that brings people together and says, I know you cared for this thing, I also cared for this thing. You know, in this country, there's a reason why Kenya is number 145 in the Corruption Perception Index. So sometimes what our leaders don't communicate to the constituencies is that the struggle for the presidency, Gitonga, sometimes is a struggle for co-option into the resource management team. Okay. Because when you are there, you might actually dig your hand into the tin for your own aggrandizement. Okay. But
thank you.
That is what we need to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Steve, for highlighting. I mean, regarding Mamboleo, I won't even talk about it because he has exhaustively summarized everything. But however, let me take this time to respond to my beautiful sister here. My sister said that we want peace, and she said that she was blaming the NASA leadership for the chaos that are ongoing. Now, here's a case where we are blaming demonstrators for taking some actions, but we don't want to give them time to explain why they're demonstrating. The big question is, have we had any policeman that has been killed by NASA demonstrators? The answer is zero. Instead, we have policemen smoking them out of their houses. So what do we do?
Evidence of what you said?
No, you said you have evidence, and I challenge you to take to court. If you're saying that the NASA leadership is the one behind the loss of all lives, take your evidence.
Well, I think that's misquoted. She didn't say NASA leadership is responsible for lives lost. However, the question then would be, at the point where we have demonstrators coming out, we know that the NASA leader, Raila Odinga, said that come the elections, people should stay home. At the point where they still are coming out, isn't it incumbent on both sides, by the way, not just NASA, for Matiang'i to ask his forces to deal with things appropriately, but at the same time, also NASA leaders to remind their supporters that this is not worth your life yet. Stay at home.
There have been efforts by the NASA leadership. In fact, Raila Odinga told his supporters to stay at home, But speaking of Matiang'i, he's in fact not even supposed to be holding that office as we speak at the moment, because we all heard what he said regarding the Chinkoro. We must not sugarcoat.
That is now.
Mr. Gitonga,
the point is, we seem to be personalizing.
No,
to
Mr. Mamboleo, just hold on.
It's not
the demos, just Mamboleo.
We are muddying the waters.
We are muddying the waters.
Mixing too many issues.
It is suffice to say that demonstrators have gone beyond the law. That's a fact. I mean, we can't demonstrate. We can't argue that. The fact is this. The fact, and I've said it. The political actors, the leadership of NASA, the way you organize the demonstration, if you whip emotions and tell them, for instance, Renda Kwangoa, in regard to IEBC, of course, people go to the street knowing that this is not a peaceful demonstration, and you can't have your cake and eat it. Article 24 that requires limitation. I have an issue just the manner in which that limitation is being applied. The police have a right to contain people so that the order of government is not disrupted and the lives and livelihoods of Kenyans are not disrupted. But the manner in which they did it is what was also outside the law. So in short is this. The demonstrations that we've seen, clearly as a lawyer, and I'll tell you as a human rights practitioner, have been outside the law. Insofar as they start under Article 37, the right to picket, freedom of assembly and association, but you are going there, and you've seen the images, hurling stones and all that. That is not what peaceful demonstration, and we can't debate that. You get the manner of response has equally been excessive. And the point I was making is this: if we want to continue like that post-election, Gitonga, this country will have a problem. We must demarcate.
I want to say something small that
and identify how to
something very small that I need to repeat this for our viewers that. Raila Odinga is a respectable man. He has done to this country what many citizens of this country will never achieve. And I think, to his credit, he deserves a lot of respect, and we should be sensitive to the fact that he has offered himself as or to be president of this country. And that is, for me, something extremely important and beautiful. But this idea that if he does not succeed, that then probably the whole house should come down is totally misplaced. And then I should say this, that Raila Odinga sometimes speaks from two sides of his mouth. On the one side, he's saying, stay at home. And on the other side, he's saying, come out in large numbers. He gives an interview to the BBC and says, we will stay at home. And then when he addresses his supporters locally, he seems to be rallying them to action and so on and so forth. And being a serious researcher into politics in this country, I know that these things don't end in media conferences and so on. There are mobilizations that happen in the underground that will tell people what to do even when we have given a statement in the media. So we should say this to all Kenyans. You have a responsibility as a Kenyan to heed to good advice and to take up a course of action which you think is consistent with the Constitution and the law. And then on the part of government, no life should be lost for the fact that somebody was demonstrating. Let us find innovative, imaginative ways on this turn of the 21st century of dealing with demonstrators. But on the other hand, we say this to NASA supporters. Please, or we say this to NASA, please make sure you don't put the security agencies in an awkward situation in which sometimes they do not know what to do. Don't provoke the security agencies into action which you know might become excessive. So let's treat this country as our country and let everybody play that role they are supposed to play. In a way of summary, I'm saying we now have a process that has just been concluded. And I believe there is that opportunity for a discussion, but an important discussion that surrounds the socio-political, economic problems of this country. Let us not make this just an election issue, because you see, as I said earlier, all the boiling that you see during election is symptomatic of other undercurrents, which could be social or economic. And so let's try and address those economic questions. Let us try and understand this, understanding by a section of the population that, you know, if your man never becomes president, then you don't have a good chance of becoming a better, of living better in this country. So that when we have addressed all those issues, then we buttress that with addressing institutional reforms of the IEBC, institutional reforms in the police, and so on and so forth, including institutional reforms in the presidency itself.
All right, I need closing comments now because of time. Brian, your closing comments.
Okay, thank you so much, Michael.
And let's try and keep them.
Okay, just to conclude, let me say that Kenyans will never fight if we have a free and fair process. They will never fight because of that. And I want to echo what Mamboleo has said. It is upon the leadership of both governments, both political outfits, Jubilee and NASA, to really take control of their followers, right? So that we don't have a scenario whereby we have a repeat of whatever happened in 2007. So basically, it's time for us as a country to just heal. We've had issues. We remember we had terrorist attacks, you know, but regardless of all stuff like that, we've been able to come together as a country. So why must we divide this? And let me just say it, I'm not, just to make my position known, I saw my sister was really like, okay, just to make my position known, I'm not pro-NASA, I'm not pro-Jubilee, I'm pro the rule of law. We have to respect the rule of law. It is the only savior we have at this moment in time. Thank you.
Steve,
Gitonga,
closing comments, briefly, please.
To communicate this to the public. Incubating democracy is a painfully slow process. Democracy has never been brought into urgent maturation. During this process, the role of the court is very critical. We are lucky as a country that in post-2010 dispensation, we have a judiciary that is variously described as ascendant, robust, independent, and functional. A judiciary that is impervious to executive manipulation. A judiciary that can cancel a presidential election. Let us preserve the prestigious position of the judiciary and utilize that. If we had lacked an independent judiciary, you can only imagine where we'd be taking all this conflict and controversy, perhaps on the street. So right now, because we are a rule of law country, I have restated the Constitution offers us a predictable pathway. Let's just, what is the issue, irrespective of whoever is saying that issue or commit. It can be Raila. Raila can say it 1,000 times. It could be Uhuru, it could be anyone. But what is the issue? Where do we place this issue? In what bucket? This issue, now that elections are over, we only are at election dispute resolution stage. The issues are here are about the credibility of elections, and we know the forum is the courts.
And there's a legal pathway to follow.
Yeah, there's a legal pathway, and let's not move outside that pathway.
Okay.
Then, after the judicial process is over, the question is that of, do we have a president to swear in? Once we swear in the president, he serves for 5 years. So that is an irreducible minimum insofar as the Constitution provides it. Okay. So if you're having conversations within that, at that level, again, we can talk about now socioeconomic inclusion, you know, expanding social protection frameworks around that.
I need Lydia to give us her closing comments. Lydia, please give us your closing comments. The director is really on my case. We're out of time.
Well, Kenya needs to respect the rule of law, and I'm calling upon whoever becomes the president of this country to remember that work and women candidates of Kenya, we are also in court, and we would have chosen, many women are here in this country, and we vied, but we chose to go to courts because we really feel that women have been ostracized because inclusion and the aggression that is happening in this country is lack of feeling like you're part of this process, you're part of this resource management, you're part of the other. So ideally, let us not forget that women will be coming up in heavy numbers. We're protecting our rights. We feel discriminated, that not more than the 2/3 gender rule has not been respected.
Applied. All right, I'll have to cut you short right there because we need to cross over to Bomas of Kenya, where we have Rita Tinina with the latest from Bomas of Kenya. Rita, over to you. Yes, Rita Tinina, we are waiting for the latest from Bomas. Over to you.
Well, Michael, since I last spoke to you, we've not had any other announcement of the verification of the constituencies that have been verified. The last we spoke was 65. Results from 65 constituencies had been verified, handed over to the IEBC chairman by returning officers. But more returning officers, we are told, are around. They have brought their Form 34Bs from the constituencies as well as Form 34A from the polling centers in their constituencies. And so we are waiting when the verification process ends, what is happening that they're choosing to verify in a bunch, for instance, a bunch of 10. When they verify those, they come and announce, and the returning officers then present them to the IEBC chairman. So 65 so far have been verified out of the 291 constituencies, 290 constituencies, remember, and one from the diaspora, making 291. 65 verified so far. But on the IEBC portal, it says they have received results. They scanned Form 34B from 241 constituencies. Michael.
All right, and do we have an estimated time of when Wafula Chebukati is going to address? He's been very rare, I must say, this time round. And many Kenyans, of course, this doesn't help in building up his accountability narrative.
Well, Michael, that would be a very difficult question to answer. The IEBC in the last 2 days, or even during the August elections, proved the commissioners are not good at keeping time. Even on the first day, the first statement that they gave, the first update during the election day on the 26th was 9.5 hours after polls opened. After that, he promised, 3:30, he promised he was going to give another update at 6. It ended up to midnight. Yesterday, they only gave 3 updates. Today, none so far. And if this I can bet with you, Michael, if the IEBC chairman said he would be giving a statement at noon, I would be surprised if he came there to give the statement in an hour. Michael.
Thank you, Rita. Well, they say that punctuality is a mark of a disciplined officer. So I don't know. It seems like there's not much confidence given to the timings that the IEBC chair has given so far. But we're going to, well, keep monitoring, and we'll be back to you later. Let's now cross over to Robert Wanyonyi, who is in Kakamega, I believe, and he's joining us from Bungoma. He's joining us on telephone. Robert, what is happening in Bungoma?
Good morning, Michael. I've just arrived in Bungoma from Kakamega a short while ago to find that there were some little bit of skirmishes at the bus stage there. But the police have moved in to try and quell the situation. I'm reliably informed that there were some demonstrators who had lit bonfires along the road to Mumias and preventing transport there. But I've just spoken to some of the boys demonstrating, and they are complaining about the apparent use of force, brutal force, and also live bullets by the police yesterday that led to the killing of one person who they said was not even demonstrating, but was just a shoemaker who was resting by the roadside. So the youth seem to have taken it up today, Michael.
All right, and what's the situation now? Is it calming down? Are they just complaining, or are there demonstrations that are taking place, Robert?
As we are speaking now, Michael, is that the situation is calming down after more police officers arrived, and the demonstrators today appear to be more peaceful, and they are not really engaging the police like they did yesterday. So as we are speaking now, unless maybe something else is packed off, but what I'm seeing is that the situation has come back to almost normal.
All right, and what about businesses? Have people maybe resumed to their normal operations, you know, like shops opening, or is the town still very quiet?
Michael, the town is still very quiet. Businesses have picked up, but on very, very few businesses that have opened, because others are fearing to open. Maybe they fear that maybe the new skirmishes might cause some looting and all that. And only a few businesses, say like 20% of the business community are open for business. but others are still cautious, just watching how the situation unfolds before they can open their businesses, Michael.
All right, thank you very much, Robert Wanyonyi, reporting from Bungoma, where there were skirmishes yesterday. And, well, it seems like there is a bit of calm today. However, there's complaints of police using too much force, excessive force. But now, activist Okiya Omtata now wants the Supreme Court to nullify repeat presidential elections, arguing that it was null and void after NASA candidate Raila Odinga and his running mate Kalonzo Musyoka withdrew their candidature.
In a case filed Friday and certified as urgent, activist Okiya Omtata argues that the fresh presidential election conducted Thursday was irregular even before taking place and that it is an exercise in futility. In the 13-page petition naming IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati and the IEBC Commission as respondents, as well as all the 8 presidential candidates, Omtata wants an interpretation of the Constitution on the grounds that the election ought to have been vacated after NASA presidential candidate Raila Odinga withdrew his candidature.
And what I'm seeking is the interpretation by the Supreme Court of Article 143 in the wake of what has just happened in the terms of what the so-called election that was held yesterday.
Omtata, who maintains that the fresh presidential election has literally divided the country in the middle, wanted the Supreme Court to pronounce itself on the validity of the election before more harm is done. IEBC has been forced to postpone a repeat election that was scheduled to take place Saturday in the Luo Nyanza region until a later date in 3,635 polling stations, including Kisumu, Siaya, Migori, and Homa Bay counties.
I'm saying that on the one hand, Raila's withdrawal, pursuant to the decision of the Supreme Court in the Raila 2013, vacated or cancelled the elections of 2016. So what happened yesterday was something unknown in law, something a sham, some exercise for which I think the commissioners of the IEBC have to refund the people of Kenya their money which they have spent on that election.
Omtata's attempts to stop the election and calls for a caretaker government were dismissed by the High Court on Tuesday after the High Court said it did not have the jurisdiction to hear the case. Cecilia Wakesho, KTN News.
All right, and well, that's where we wind up this particular segment of Kivumbi 2017. But of course, we still continue following up on the developments in different counties as we now hit day 2 after the election. Remember that there was meant to be some elections in the Nyanza area, but that was later called off by the IEBC chair, Wafula Chebukati, and announced that he's going to give a later date. That date has not been given yet, and we continue to wait. Meanwhile, the vote tallying continues in different parts of the country, and as the vote tallying continues, the nerve center is the IEBC National Tallying Center, and that's Bomas of Kenya. We have Rita Titina there on standby, basically following up on that, and we keep you posted. For now, we are taking a break from Kivumbi 2017. We've got that documentary lined up for you, but at the top of the hour, we have more news, updates, reviews, and keeping you updated. My name is Michael Gitonga. Thank you for your company. Do have yourselves a great and a productive weekend. Keep safe.